start streaming. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing. Well, there's a big game coming up in just a couple of hours, but before that, we've got a big race here as we say hello and welcome to Imola, and welcome to another edition of the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulation. Wilvinson with Connery Maddock and Randy Cheneth here as we are just a couple of moments away from going green. Qualifying is already underway, and here's a look at the drivers and the positions so far. Well, we've got ourselves a number of people who have set themselves lap times. The thing is, now these drivers only have one lap compared to previous years as well. I'll say hello to you first, Connery. Imola, ever since they re-profiled it, it's become a fast track again.
Yeah, it really has. The most recent redoing of the layout, shall we say, this layout change was in 2007, getting rid of the Variante bar, so it did up the lap times just that little bit, but obviously it's not as fast as it ever has been. Of course, you have to remember during the Senna era when both Tamburello and Villeneuve corners were just absolutely vicious, and Tamburello, unfortunately, a little bit too vicious, which is why they went through so many layout changes, but it's still a fantastic racetrack nonetheless.
Yeah, 1994, of course, we can dwell upon that one. We had Rubens Barrichello almost lose his life running Ratzenberger, Ayrton Senna did, and you can still see, I love the little details on your iRacing service, you can still see the Brazilian flag at the point where Ayrton Senna lost his life down at Tamburello Corner. Back to the here and now though, Randy, this is going to be a fun race because there's a load of drafting opportunities.
And that's the big thing with this Skip Barber car, isn't it? It seems like every single track we go to, we're always talking about the slipstream. It doesn't matter if it's Imola or a big track with super long straightaways, or if it's Brands Hatch. We're always talking about the slipstream here in these little Skip Barber cars. And we have one heck of a long front straightaway for these guys to work the slipstream going down to that first chicane.
Yeah, let's have a look then through your starting grid for this edition of Sunday Night Primetime, presented by DES Simulations. And front row of the grid, it's going to be Diego Francisco here today. 2 minutes 3.570. Greg Seat alongside him on the front row of the grid. For him, Atanides then, P number 3 with Sasha Gall in the 4th position. Row number 3 will have Kane Halliburton and Philippe Leber. Enzo Cantor, Simon Edwards in row number 4. Row number 5, Martin Cruz and Pablo Galvan Flores. So, that is the situation where we are. The rest of the grid will cycle through on your screen right about now for you. Conway, it's a slightly longer race here today. Normally it's 45 minutes. Today we're looking at just over an hour, and that is going to be interesting because that will change the strategy a little bit.
Yeah, it will change the strategy. It's not usually a situation that these drivers get themselves into, so we can expect maybe a couple of drivers that are further back through the field that are better than the front runners on the strategic decisions actually get themselves further up the field in this one, as the rest of the drivers will take themselves to the starting grid. We got a maximum of about 30 seconds before we can get this race going, and it would be a huge run all the way down to turn number 1 for the first time. And turn number 1 here at Imola, the Tamburello sweeper, as I like to call it, that's not really suitable for 2-3 wide racing like we're used to seeing on the starts here in the 2K World Cup, so it'll be interesting to see how these guys manage.
Yeah, the drivers are lined up on the starting grid there. You can see them all sat there waiting to go. A lot of drivers did not set a qualifying time here today. Those lights, though, about to go on top of the iRacing.com gantry, getting ready to go racing in the 2K World Cup. Lights go on, and they'll go out. We are green. We are racing here at Imola, as it is that run through the gears up as you come to that first chicane for the first time. Are we going to have any incidents in the first lap of this race? You've got a number of key moments that you have to navigate yourself through, and well, at the front of your field, Francisco's got himself a fantastic start. As you can see, exit then of Tamburello chicane. Now that run down to Villeneuve. A little bit of sweeping by the drivers as they tackle it, going too wide, but they're all fine through the first part of this track. And well, that was a little bit different to what we expected. We expected a bit more action. There is 2 wide racing going on. We can see the number 2 car, Felipe Burt. We go on board of him now, Randy, as he heads himself up the hill for the first time towards Acqua Minerale. We did see a little bit 2 wide racing, but actually not as much as I expected.
Yeah, it was actually a very calm first couple of corners. They head through now in the middle part of the track, and everyone just single file. You don't really have, there's a couple maybe side-by-side battles, but for the most part, everyone was really calm through that first chicane, got themselves into a nice, kind of single racing line, and they head through now and up the hill towards the final chicane. They don't have a lot of positions really being challenged just yet. I think everyone's waiting for that front straightaway so they can start playing wind tunnel testers.
Yeah, indeed. So let's look at that behind. You've got a snake of cars, and the thing is, Connery, the second they get out of the chicane and come down towards the double left-hander at Ravazza, then it is going to be a flat-out city. And we'll go on board for Himatanides. He's a driver, of course, who's been a big name as of late in both this series and Monday Night Skippies, Club UK and Ireland Monday Night Skippies. And he is one driver who knows how to run in that draft.
Antonides is always a big challenger for Thrustmaster Mivano, and he's third in line. Immediately dives down on towards the lane. Now that is a very interesting predicament.
Yeah, he's had a previous, he's got drive-through penalty, so we don't get to see him draft, but we do get drafting at the front. Diego Francisco going to lose that race lead then to teammate Greg Zeet. And actually, we're going to see as we go behind, he's actually just about going to keep that second place. It is Sasha Gore who is behind right now. Your top 3, Greg Zeet, Diego Francisco, Sasha Gore, Felipe
we got a pile up coming out of turn 1. The 11 car involved. Couple cars around.
Oh, this is a big one as well. Randy, talk us through it.
Just seems like someone likely just overcooks that corner and gets into the back of somebody. Kind of the classic incident that you often have here at Imola, going into
53.
turn 1 at speed for the first time. The 53 involved as well. You see 3 wide out there in front of them, and into the braking zones they go. The 53 just dives really, really deep and has to slow it so down at the center of the corner that he basically just stopped and left no one really anywhere to go.
Yeah, that could have been a much worse incident though, Connery. I mean, there's some good heads-up driving by a lot of people there just to make sure we kept everyone, well, most people on track.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone just tiptoeing their way through there with the instant. Some taking a couple more risks than others, but it seems like a good amount of the cars behind actually managed to survive that particular moment there. It has actually split up your entire field into 2 distinct packs. We have the first one from P number 1 all the way down to what looks to be P number 9 out there on circuit, and then you have a second pack for everyone else. So it's caused this division already this early on.
Yeah, it has, and actually down in the pack, we've got 2 wide, 2 deep racing going on here. Is the driver of Adrian Hendy. He's running himself in P number 16. He's got Tran Charan around him. Francois Bullion involved there as well. Edwin Valerino just behind. This is the battle going on outside of your top 10. Valerino having a bit of a poor start to this race. He's actually all the way down now in P number 21. Greg Zietso will lead, or will he lead at the end of the second lap? Don't forget bonus points are in play, and it's a very long run to the start-finish line. So, Randy, those bonus points is going to be impactful, especially as it's a longer race.
Yeah, that's going to be very, very important here as we're, still over 20 laps to go for this one. Bit of a longer race we have on the ticket than we typically get. But you're right when you talk about that run from the last corner onto the front straightaway. It's into the start-finish line, though, excuse me. It's a lot longer than what you typically see. We often talk about Monza as a track that has a very, very long front straightaway, but relatively that start-finish line pops up relatively quickly after you come off that final corner there. Here at Imola, the start-finish line is basically smack dab in the middle, so it's almost a Daytona versus Talladega style conversation of where that start-finish line is. And when you're talking about the slipstream here, that can have a very, very different effect when you're talking about a race that very could well come down to just a few hundredths of a second to decide the winner.
We've had another moment down at turn number 1. Connery, talk us through it.
Yeah, lap 3, turn number 1. Karl Dronke getting himself an issue down into turn number 1 and spins right into the middle of traffic. And there are cars actually that ended up going elbow, and Dronke was one of them. But looking at further behind, it's just an absolute carnage once again into turn 1 at the back of your field. Yeah,
and that's the second big incident we've had down at Tamburello Corner so far today. I mean, the thing is, there are cautions that can come into play in this race, Connery, but it's a case of, is the track blocked? Well, it wasn't blocked in any instance. Yes, it's broken the field up dramatically, as we've actually got Brian Dewell, Rob Adams, Chris Malcolm, Karl Dronke all on pit road. It's broken up that mid-pack dramatically, but the track was never blocked. He says.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is with the track not getting blocked, and especially with such a big track, Will, I think it's going to be relatively unlikely we see a caution, especially this early in the game where everyone really is still fairly close to each other. I mean, you're talking about the bulk of the field all being within about 15 seconds of one another.
Yeah, as Sasha Goll heading himself to the race lead. We haven't actually seen Sasha much in this series before, as you can of course get social with us on social media. Happy, not allowed to say it, weekend here, because apparently that is a copywritten thing. But Sasha Goll leading the race right now by a tenth of a second over Francisco. Cisco has got Greg Zietz behind him. Felipe Burr remains in 4th. Want to bring you up to date with Fahim Atanides, because of course he had that drive-through penalty at the start of this one. He now runs in the 25th position on track. The good news is, Connery, on one hand he's got clean air, on the other hand, however, he's not got anyone to draft with.
Yeah, that is a big issue that we start to talk about in these sorts of races here in the Skip Barber race. I haven't done 2K or, of course, the Monday Skippies in such a long time, but the story is the same with the draft. Those that don't have it are at a huge disadvantage compared to the ones that do. And, well, if you're at the front of the pack, well, you're in a situation where you're also using a little bit more fuel than the rest of the field as well. So that does compromise you a little bit in terms of the pit stops here. So it's something you always have to think about. Being at the front of the pack is not always where you want to be.
Yeah, so having a look through, it'll be an onboard of Francois Bullion for a couple of moments. We will go back to the front of your field, though, because we've got 2 wide again. And this is the thing. Now, when it was the 2 TT Racing drivers out front, they were happy to kind of work together. But now Sasha Goll's in there. He really is in the middle of a TT Racing sandwich. Francisco TT Racing, Greg Zietz TT Racing, Felipe Burr TT Racing, Randy. And Sasha Goll's all there by himself, having to try and find a way to stay in contact and maybe get back to the front of the field.
Well, he's already looking keen to do it, as he's going to poke over to the left-hand side to try to nose out in front. for this race lead. Will he be able to get it going down in towards turn 1? 4 wide for a moment, and it looks like Sasha should be able to take this race lead as he gets the inside and actually gets clear before they ever turn in towards the Tamburello chicane. So great move there from Sasha Gorel, but now he's got TT Racing 2, 3, 4 all lined up behind him. How are they going to work when they eventually get the slipstream and able to fight back by? It's actually 74 Greg Seats. He's going to immediately throw it up here down into Villeneuve.
He's being bold, his Seats, but there we are. He's got himself back that race lead. Fantastic racing going on between Seats. Oh, that's a big moment there because the number 26 got rear-ended, and Diego Francisco was the person who hit him, Connery.
Oh, that was a moment and a half there coming up in towards Tosa. It was Francisco running into the back of Sasha Gorel, and well, Francisco kind of a self-punishing move in some respects as he gets pushed towards the outside and actually loses 2 positions, slots in behind the car of Kane Halliburton. So that is just not the ideal move at all. I think it was just a little bit too much of a close run thing. There's a car off ahead of these guys. Chris Malcolm is having a huge moment in terms of this entire race. He's off at Bacra Minerale, and he's going to rejoin the track right about now. He's had an absolute mare.
Yeah, that's a positive. Sim Racing, University of Isabella, 1 car. Chris Malcolm already scored a lap down. So it looked as though, I mean, he was very lucky actually, Connery, because he could have ended up causing a huge pile-up.
Yeah, he could have just rejoined right in front of your race leaders. Then, you know, where do Greg Seats, where does Francisco Gorel go? Where does Philippe Libera as well? I get his name right, the series admin. But heading their way down out of the final corner, out on the front straight of Libera. He does head his way on towards the lane. Will he be the only visitor on towards the lane? He is of that front pack right now. So Libera is at risk of coming out alone here if he's not too careful.
Yeah, but he kind of likes that. We see him become more and more aggressive over the years in terms of 2K World Cup, in terms of exactly what he is going to do in terms of his strategy. He has become more aggressive. He overshoots though, and that's going to cost him maybe a second and a half, but that could be a big determining factor later on in this event. It's going to be pretty much a 2-stopper here today, Randy, because of the longer race distance. Normally, as they say, you're on for 45 minutes. Today we're running for just over an hour. However, the fuel tanks in these series are limited. I mean, we know when they're unlimited, these skippies can pretty much go on for about 2.5 hours, one would joke.
Yeah, you get them out there on the racetrack on a full tank, and somewhere in the next week or so, they eventually pull down in towards pit road, and the driver is completely malnourished. But you're right, that mistake with Philippe Libera, even though it's a second and a half, I think that hurts a lot more on this track with the way the slipstream works, because that pretty much, I think, is going to put him out of any sort of slipstream pull from the front group, as long as all those drivers have some adequate pit stops. So maybe a second and a half may not seem like the most on most tracks. I think this car and track combination in particular is going to be rather nasty trying to come back from that.
Yep, there's your top 8 though, down at the bottom of your screen right now. Sasha Gorel leads by Greg Seats by pretty much nothing. 4 tenths to a second. Kane Halliburton in 3rd place. Brian Lockwood in 4th. Then Simon Edwards, Paul Malocas and Pablo Galvan Flores round out your top 8. Big news of the day so far. Leiber came in all by himself last time around, and well for him, Martinez, who well could have been a challenger in this event for Movano Racing. He had to come down at the end of lap number 1 to serve himself a drive-through penalty. On board with Greg Seats, which of course you can get social /Racesport TV at Racesport TV on Twitter. One more car in. That is TT Racing driver Diego Francisco. Now what we've got to compare, Connery, is where did he come out in relation to Leiber, who had himself that slow stop because he overshot.
Yep, that's the very important Finn, the 88 down on towards the lane. We have Francisco, we have the 48 of him deciding to come down in, and exactly where does he file out? That is the big issue that you raised there, Will. And, well, we'll just know in just a couple of moments' time. There's a bit of 3 wide going down the front straight, though. That's for just positions just outside the top 10. Francois Billon. We have Muczynski involved as well with Burton Oswald, as Oswald will come out on top.
Indeed, there's Francisco. We'll go back to him. Past the stripe, and where is Philippe Leiber? The answer to that question is he is ahead of Leiber, but there's not much in it at all. In fact, Leiber will come back in front before they get into Tamburello corner. So that's good for Francisco to compare the pit stop times. Leibert did 9.3 seconds pit stop. Diego Francisco 11.3. How much of that, Randy, was him overshooting for Leibert? How much of that? In fact, no. Leibert did a very short pit stop, especially when you consider that he overshot.
I think what we're likely seeing is Philippe, I think, would have seen that mistake and probably would have just short-filled the car a little bit to try to make up for that. So what we're probably going to see is when he has to come down pit road for the second time in this event, probably come down pit road, it'll be flip-flopped the exact other way. He will, in theory, have to take a slightly longer pit stop because of that. So somewhat dealing with the penalty now, and if he can hang with the lead group, I think that little bit of flip-flopping strategy should be okay for him.
Yeah, indeed. We go back, though, on board with Sasha Gore. You can see the trachometer on the right-hand side of your screen as they exit Ravata 2, lap number 7 of 27 here in the 2K World Cup, presented by DES Simulation. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drivers at the front of your field don't come in. There's a big gaggle of drivers so behind. Bernard Oswald, you were talking about this a moment ago, Connery, just how close the battle is going on amongst these drivers.
Sasha Gall battling for the race lead. It takes for the race lead down into 1 this time. Has a little bit of trouble getting stopped for the first apex, but he's relatively okay. But Kane Halliburton also might be looking for more here to get himself further up this train. Same with Brian Lockwood, who's right on the back of this particular battle as well. So these are these guys that are going a little bit longer than the guys that pitted in earlier. Those early pitters really opportunistic, trying to find where they're going to file out once the rest of these guys decide to make their way in. Up through Tosa now as you get the elevation change starting to go up the hill, and still no changes for position inside of this leading group right now. But I think this is just more of a case of just solidifying their position and then biding time until the pit stops as well.
Yeah, let's go back down to that battle going on. This is pack number 2, which we really is going to start off with Francois Bullion in 10th position. You've got Gorg in the number 811 car in 11th place. Adrian Hanley in P number 12. In fact, we're going to go on board of him because he's going to look to the outside in the run into Haku Minardi. And that's not a brave place. That is a brave place to do it, is what I was going to say. It's not an intelligent place, some would argue, to try and go too wide. The track really does narrow down at this part of the racetrack. But Adrian Hendy versus Machinsky in the 811 car. They continue to battle as they come up the hill again towards the third chicane. And Randy, one thing that's worth noting, 20 incident point limit and then you're disqualified. I've seen a lot of drivers pushing very wide here and also at the end of the Ravatsas.
Yeah, those are really, I think, the two places where it's easy to rack up incident points. And you're right, with only having a limit of 20, you don't really want to use it up too early. You know, that's one of those things, almost like push to pass as an IndyCar or something along those lines. It's sometimes always beneficial to sort of be a little bit calmer with the track limits in the early goings, and then you can really push it to try to pressure someone later on. As you see everyone running a little bit wide out over the AstroTurf, coming off that second Ravatsa, we get a little bit of separation from this gaggle of cars. A couple of cars also rolling down on towards pit road ahead of these guys. But this is one of the things I love in this Skippy 2K World Cup Championship, is that we always get these gaggles of cars that sort of form up. You sort of get a lead pack and then a second pack and then a third pack. Really, of all the leagues we do, I think this is the only kind of car combo that we typically ever see that happen. Yeah,
Enzo Cantor making his first pit stop of the day in the number 924 car. Out and away he will come in 12.9 seconds. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have had the draft, and now it is time to have ourselves some racing in just a few weeks' time here live on the iRacing Esports Network. It is the return of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series, the 10th season of action. It will all kick off Daytona, the high banks of Daytona, February 12th, 2019, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, live and exclusive on Raceport TV and on the iRacing Esports Network. And well, Randy, it's been fantastic to see the draft for the eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, and what a way it's going to be for 2019.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. There are some Some interesting picks that came out of that draft for sure. I think there's a couple drivers that I think most people would have expected to see be taken off the board, and a couple drivers that I think people would have expected would have stayed on the board, and for most people would have been a free agent coming into this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how people react to that. Will some of those free agents have a chip on their shoulder? I've been saying it since we did the draft earlier this week. It was an interesting draft. Of course, Ray Alfala is expected going number 1. We have all these new teams, and of course new drivers coming into 2019 as well. Is going to make Daytona a very, very interesting place.
Yeah, and the thing that's worth noting about that as well, Connery, is there's a little bit of to and fro going on right now between the Porsche World Championship Series and the eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, because they keep on adding more and more prize money.
They both want to be the top series on iRacing, right? They want to be the guys that are offering the most prize money. So I'm not entirely surprised that is happening. But oh my word, 2019 is going to be such a breakout year for iRacing esports. We said before that some of the series are a dawn of a new era, but we have to say it again for this, with a total of what I guess is like $330,000 worth of prizes up for grabs this year. Wow, that's just incredible.
That's almost enough to get yourself breakfast in Boston for a day.
I imagine that's how much John Henry's breakfast costs.
Yes, to be fair, I'm sure he'll be watching a different event, shall we say. John Henry, of course, a big Bostonian, so he'll be rooting for the Patriots here today.
Talking about Red Sox practice for sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, he's not watching anything else. There's Paul Malocas right now in 5th place on track. Andrea Hellman and Adrian Hendy going at it as well for P number 9. So what we've got right now is those who have pitted early getting their first stint out of the way quickly, Connery. We're going to have the flurry of cars on pit road in the next 2 laps or so. They will go long, and then they'll do their final pit stop and dash to the end. Excuse me.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of strategy cards to be played in this race. It is one of the longest races on the calendar here for the 2K World Cup. So the cars that are leading right now, those not necessarily be the ones at the end, definitely.
As we go on board with Simon Edwards, he's coming on towards pit road. Sasha Gorda coming on towards pit road as well. Now that one's interesting, Connery, because they are the 2 drivers who are not part of the TT Racing gaggle. So they're coming in, they're kind of working together in this kind of like alternate strategy, saying, you know what, we'll be dance partners. I can't believe I've already talking on the NASCAR references. Dance partners.
I'll be honest, I'm surprised you haven't started talking about in-car tools and wing adjustments.
Oh, not yet. But Simon Edwards then, he is doing his pit stop as we have a look then from our overhead camera, brought to you by And Wern Design. Pit stop time 14.8. That's very long, actually. 15.8 for Sasha Gorda. Do you think they're going to try and find a way of one-stopping this right now? I mean, they shouldn't be able to. They should have to make another pit stop, but these are very long pit stop times, about 2 seconds longer than what we normally expect in 2K. As we go back to have a look at P number 1, well, your new P number 1, 2, 3, Brian Lockwood, Kane Halliburton, Paul Malocas right now. So having a look through them as they work through Aqua Minerale right now. Let's go on board with Kane Halliburton as well. Coming up the hill right now, Connery. They are due on pit road. In fact, they are the only 4 drivers now. Lockwood, Halliburton, Malocas, and Andrew Picorio. 3 of them in one gaggle together, and they're the only 4 drivers not yet to have come on pit road.
Yeah, exactly. Well, 27 laps in this event means about lap 13, lap 14 is the mark you're looking for if you're looking to one-stop this race, which, as you've already mentioned, is going to be pretty unlikely. But, never say never. Some of these guys are absolute gods at fuel saving, but we'll see if any of them drop themselves down on towards the lane this time. There goes Lockwood. Same with Halliburton, Malocas, and is there going to be Carl Dronke as well? Actually, he's laps down, so that won't matter at all. But Andrew Picario is the only car now that is still out there. So Kane Halliburton, Lockwood, Malocas, all in and not able to make the halfway.
Yep, so let's have a look. Andrew Picorio is going to exit Ravazza number 2 right about now, and he also will come on towards pit road. So everyone now has made one pit stop. And here's the thing whilst we've been focusing on people doing their first service, we've had Diego Francisco pull out a 2.6 second advantage over Philippe Leber. Leber is either having to fuel save or he's looking for someone to pull him around the racetrack. He's got his other teammate, Greg Zeitz, now, who is 4/10 of a second back. Maybe TT Racing drivers are just going to try and work together here, Randy, and just try and pull themselves around the racetrack, but they're going to come 2 wide, 3 wide as they see a lot of traffic as they swap positions.
Well, Philippe Leber wanted someone to pull him around the racetrack. He's going to get someone out in front of him. He gets ahead of Greg, though, and actually looking at the TT cars, was actually Philippe's going to push wide through that second half of the Tamburello chicane. That's going to force the 12 car off the racing surface, so that's not going to bode well for Philippe, unless, like I said, he wants to be back there. But what's interesting to me is that the stop times all vary pretty wildly across these TT drivers. You have Diego Francisco with an 11.3 second stop. Greg Zeitz went 13, and of course Philippe Leber, we saw him take his stop short at 9 because of the fact that he overshot initially. So slightly different fuel loads for all these guys following that first stop.
Yeah, indeed. So we're having a look at Greg Zeitz. He is ahead now of Philippe Leber as a consequence of Leber pushing wide. Brian Lockwood's come out in second, but there's a 3-second gap right now from Diego Francisco to Brian Lockwood. So Lockwood and co will have a lot of work to do in this second run. It's worth noting, though, that Lockwood's pit stop time was 13.8 seconds, Connery. It was the longest of your top 5. In fact, the only person who's gone longer on the fuel gun, Sasha Gall in 6th position and Simon Edwards in 7th.
Yeah, just taking a little bit more fuel on the stops there for those guys. Not feeling confident that the lower fuel strategy is going to work out for them. Just making sure they're pretty safe to be able to do this on the one more stop required, as Greg Zeitz getting pretty close to Brian Lockwood coming down into this Rivetta. But the thing is, where Diego Francisco is right now, this is pretty much the worst position for him to be in terms of his fuel saving right now, because he is on his own at the front of the field without a drafting partner. He may well be caught up here by Zeitz and Lockwood, but those two drivers really need to work together with these slingshot passes coming down the front straight. They can't be battling side by side through the corners. They have to get this organized to be able to catch your race leader, or just rely on the race leader not being able to do the fuel economy.
Yeah, indeed. So if you like what you see, don't forget you can subscribe right now to the iRacing Esports Network for the very best racing from a number of iRacing broadcasters, of course, including ourselves, your good friends here at Racebot TV, as we are keeping it with this battle. Brian Lockwood and Greg Zeitz will go on board right now with the driver of Brian Lockwood. Don't forget to subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network. Let's go. Let's keep it with Brian Lockwood then. Let's have a look and let's see what he can do. The gap's grown, by the way, Randy, up to 3.3 between first and second. So Francisco is able to pull away a little bit, but the issue is, because you've got a non-TT racing driver and a TT racing driver together here, they're not necessarily going to want to work together as much. In fact, maybe Greg Zeitz might be bulking Lockwood a little bit.
That could very well be the case. See, Philippe Leber's going to poke his nose out a little bit as they run up the hill, but you're right, 3.3 seconds. Diego's been out there in front just absolutely putting on a clinic since he was given basically a free gap out in front following the pit stops. Now, there could be some things at play with different fuel loads in the cars. He might just be a little bit lighter than everyone else at the moment, but as we sort of get towards where I think we're going to be expecting to see these next group of cars start coming down pit road in the next couple of laps. We saw the absolute longest runners go 11, if I recall correctly, on their tanks of fuel, which means that somewhere around lap 16, so about 2 to 3 laps from now, is where I think a number of these people that came down early will likely had to hit the box.
Yeah, let's do a little bit of Racebot TV fan immersion. Let's go back to 4th place. Let's go on board with Philippe Leber and give you some Racebot TV fan immersion around this fantastic Imola racetrack. Well, that's a lap there. On board with Felipe Burris. Down to the inside will come Brian Lockwood in towards turn number 1 again. You can see just how wide the track is at that bit. It does funnel down as you come in towards turn number 1. You want some similarities between Monza and Imola? Well, there's one of them, Connery. The fact that this track is very wide on the front straightaway, then it really does funnel down. Of course, as I said earlier, you get to out Raleigh, and really, it's a one groove line around the racetrack there. But at the start of the lap, you can go 3 wide. We've seen 4 wide once already here today as well.
It's something I brought up when it was when we had the Porsche Pro qualifying broadcast, and you can get that run out of Tosa up towards Piratella and look for the inside, but Piratella itself, that fast left at the top of the hill, isn't really suited to overtaking, and neither is Imola for the reasons you described, because it gets so congested into there. So this, Imola in a way is just a massive tease in terms of the overtakes. You think you have an opportunity, but no, it just doesn't happen.
You had to bring up the Porsche broadcast from yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Sorry.
We'd gotten so far.
R.I.P.
Yeah, 15 laps into the event, and you break my heart again. But Simon Edwards, Paul Malocas, they're going at it right now for P number 7 on track. Malocas in the number 4 car, Simon Edwards in the number 52 up the hill, exit out Raleigh. Now, this can be an overtaking opportunity if you're alongside into the chicane. If you're not alongside, there's absolutely no point trying to dive bomb it down there because the curbs are so aggressive. And that's the thing. I actually remember back to 2000 when Jenson Button, of all people, first came into Formula 1, Randy. And I remember it was also when people were making a big issue of the fact you have to run the curbs at Imola. This is why some people are doing better here than what we normally expect them to do, because if you can run the curbs and be aggressive over the curbs but know your limit, there's a good chance you can pick up some lap time.
I mean, there's so many racetracks like that around the world, isn't there? I mean, you talk about that last chicane at Montreal in terms of people really throwing it over the curbs, the same situation there. So it is just one of those things. I always consider it an aspect of the racetrack. Typically, we will see at least curbs that cater to the cars that are there. Sometimes they'll be a little bit more profiled down for the fast open wheelers, where if you throw a GT car race out there on the weekend, they basically put a small pyramid out there at the apex of all the corners. And in the V8 supercars, it's literally just a jump.
Yeah, talking about V8s, of course, their big home is at Bathurst. We're not going to be seeing the V8s there in a week's time, but we are going to see GT action all 12 hours of the 12 hours of Bathurst, the second big, long endurance event of the year on iRacing, and it will be, of course, here exclusive on RaceSpot TV as well. We need to bring some Aussies into that one, I think, Connery.
Yeah, I think we do, and maybe we do have a couple of Aussies here on RaceSpot TV. We have, of course, the one, the only David Haynes. He can really make an appearance, as at least in this race so far. We've got coming up to 11.5 laps to go. So next time they come across the line, the pit window is going to be open in terms of getting yourself to the end of the event on fuel, because as Randy said before, the longest runs that we've seen have been around about 11 laps. So this time by is going to be the time where, for those that want to pit super early for this last stop, this is their opportunity. Yeah,
indeed. So as we're on board the 811 machine then, Ogorg Matuszynski right now as he heads himself down the hill, the middle section of this fabulous Imola racetrack. And I will say one thing about David Haynes as well, Randy. He can eat more than I could ever consume in one sitting. I've seen him do some pizza challenges with a certain pizza company that has a domino as its logo, and that really impressed me.
Yeah, it does. And what is also going to impress me, that 43 car, that's playing with fire if you're Brian Lockwood. I've seen the fake under caution in IndyCar and NASCAR official races here on the iRacing service, but that is pretty risky right there, because if you get that wrong, that could just be a race ender right there.
Yeah, we've got the replay coming up for you now. He looks and he dances back at him on board. It didn't actually look that bad at all, but I was thinking a little bit like Lewis Hamilton. And of course, the end impact could end up being like David Coulthard. And it wasn't Melbourne, it was Adelaide, actually. The last ever time they raced at Adelaide, David Coulthard crashed out from the race lead under some... Well, it wasn't actually shenanigans. He just forgot to brake, and it was dusty offline. Philippe Leber coming off of pit road, though, 15.9. So I was right there Randy. He's taken the long stop now, and it'll be interesting to see where him and, of course, his teammate is going to come out, because now they've got a lot of work to do, has Philippe Leber, and I really want to see where his teammate's going to fall out of this as well. Also worth noting that, as it stands, this should probably put Greg Zeet and Brian Lockwood in a two-way battle for the win at the end of this one, because they both did their early stops first. Sorry, their long stops first.
Yeah, and I think so. And not to mention, Philippe Lebert also had the shortest stop by a pretty large margin of anybody, because of the fact he had to undertake fuel to kind of deal with the fact that he missed the box initially. So that stop of 15 seconds was a lot longer than any of your other front runners. Everyone else, the long stops kind of hovered somewhere around that 13-second bracket. So when these guys come down pit road, we're probably going to be looking at about a 10 to 11 stop, which is what we saw from everyone else, maybe even slightly shorter at 9, similar to the way Philippe did it. But yeah, this is going to put, I think, Philippe Lebert, unfortunately, well on the back foot when these guys come down pit road, whether it's this time or sometime the next handful of laps. The pit window's open. They can come down whenever they choose. The 43 not going to play chicken with the pit attenuator this time.
No, I wanted to go down a little bit as well, and I was keeping an eye out on where Diego Francisco is. He's currently running in 14th position after making his second pit stop, but Connery, he's got Fahim Atanides right now, and this is good for him, because it's someone that, if Atanides does decide that he wants to go past, can pull him around the racetrack a little bit, but Fahim, at the same time, might just want to save a little bit of fuel right now.
Yeah, that could definitely be the option that Antonides is going to go with. We'll see a little bit more about this story the next time they come off the final corner right now. So Antonides, does he just decide to draft himself past? I think he might just do so. Or is he going to go for the ultra fuel saving and just lift out the throttle right about now? Actually, he does duck out a line and does go for the pass down into the first corner. Francisco obviously won't fight it, just dips back in line, and he is using him to sling him around the racing circuit.
Yeah. I've got an important question, Randy. Why does America like James Corden so much? Somehow we managed to ship away. Oh my word! Atanides, he bent it down at Tamburello.
Actually, I think he may have been able to keep that off of the wall. I think he may have just gotten it stopped as we get another look at it, and indeed he did. So basically just a spin for Fahim. He's going to lose a handful of spots, and other than that, the car's going to be okay. He'll have to get the sand off the tires, but at the end of the day, that's sort of going to be a bullet dodge for Fahim Antonides in a lot of ways. As to why we like James Corden, I'm not exactly sure, Will, because we took Piers Morgan off your hands as well, and no one can really explain that one.
Yeah, but you gave him back to us every morning. Thanks very much. Raheem, very
You're
lucky
welcome.
there. And one of the reasons why we actually like some gravel once in a while, Conrad, because if that was tarmac, he would have been out.
Yeah, exactly. That barrier would have come up on him much, much quicker indeed. But thankfully, he's able to get himself spun back around and back out there, even though it is a huge amount of positions down.
He's done it
compared
again.
To where he was. Has he done it again?
No, Brian Lockwood, again, he's playing chicken. That's the second time he's done that in the last couple of laps, and it does cost him the race lead as a consequence. I mean, Randy, this is... I don't know what he's trying to do. Is he waiting for someone to come on towards pit road with him? I mean, I know there was someone just ahead of him at that point coming on. He wouldn't have run into the rear of him if he's worried about stopping distances. But this is an interesting one for Brian, playing a little bit too much chicken right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the initial one might make sense if he realized it was Philippe Lebert that was actually coming down pit road, and he just simply didn't want to come down with Philippe, knowing he'd likely have a very long pit stop, all things considering. But you're absolutely right. I think, if that's what he's doing, why doesn't he just sit in second or third place? He doesn't have to fight for the lead every single lap. Just sit there and let these guys decide when they're going to come down pit road and just follow him into the pits. It's either that or he's just, like you said, just trying to play chicken with those behind him. And that's a dangerous game. If he mistimes that, cutting back out, potentially hooks someone or even clips that wall, that could be a race ender, trying to make a game for what is maybe a spot at best with about 8 laps left to go in the race.
Right, keeping you up to date on Disaster Watch, or as I like to call it, the ink point limit. Adrian Hendy is on 15 points. He has got the most of anyone. Hans Hoyer also has 15 incident points. In terms of your potential leaders, just having a look through, Philippe Lebert is on 11, Diego Francisco is on 7, Lockwood is on 12, Greg Zeet is your lowest. He is on 3 incident points right now, as we are going to have a look at his car from the rear right now. So Greg Zeitz leading the way here, Brian Lockwood in second, Kane Halliburton in third place, Sasha Gall in fourth, Simon Edwards in fifth, Taran Sharam from nowhere up into about sixth place, and he started down your pack here today, Connery.
Yeah, he did. So absolutely fantastic stuff from Tran. P26 to 6th. Just a great run indeed, as all your race leaders, they come on towards the lane. That was a very close run thing with Brian Lockwood. Almost ran into the back of Sights coming down through the yellow cones as they'll arc now down towards their respective pit boxes. So this is the last set of stops for these guys before the end of the race now. We had Sasha Gall and Simon Edwards actually stay out in this situation. So will Tran as well as the car of Carl Dronke as well. So again, split strategy here with regards to what exact lap you decide to come down. Let's see how this one works out, as Lockwood and Halliburton, they will be side by side off the lane. Yeah,
we hopefully can get a better angle on this one. There we are. Greg Zeitz is going to be leading this duo, but it will be Lockwood who will come out ahead of his teammate Kane Halliburton. Where do they all stack up? Well, Diego Francisco has got the race lead back, and actually you can see he's going to be pretty sizable as well, about 1.5 seconds. Now, Francisco has to be bold here. He has to push over the next couple of laps just to keep that gap up above, 1.52 seconds where possible. But the biggest loser of all of this is actually Philippe Leber. He's normally strong in these races, but at the moment he will finish P number 5. That could be worse, Randy, because Sasha Gall is yet to come on pit road, and actually Sasha has had a very nice and calm middle section. And March Madness coming up in March. Did you know that? Sasha Gall actually could well try and take this race lead away with an ultra quick stop.
Yeah, and that's going to be really interesting to see how this ends up panning out when Sasha eventually comes down on towards pit road. I will say it's not panic time, I think, if you are Diego Francisco, in terms of having to push just yet, because there are a couple slower cars out in front of him right now that he can potentially work some slipstream off of, and even if it's just a lap or two where he can equal out the pace of the cars behind in terms of the draft, that's going to be pretty big. As Sasha Gall is going to make his pit stop here on lap number 20, coming to 21, he gets that car slowed down and he rolls down the pit lane here, and I believe Simon Edwards does behind as well.
Another question, Randy. How many times do you need to be told that there's going to be a show at halftime of a certain game that takes place every year?
I didn't even know they had halftime in that sport.
Really?
They use time in that sport?
Yeah.
I thought they used innings.
Sasha Gall up onto the jacks right now. Is he taking tyres? He's going to bin his race away by taking tyres here.
Oh, no.
Oh, come on, Sasha. His stop time up to 17:18. He could have been, I want to know, 21.1 seconds there. I want to know where he comes out in relation to the rest of your field. He's dropped back behind Leber, dropped back behind Simon Edwards, in fact, overtaking him on pit road. So that's a potential third place, Connery, that Sasha just thrown away.
Just such a simple mistake to make, not unchecking your tires in the pit box. That's just ridiculous, because in these cars, I think they had a Skip Barber endurance race once where they only changed the tires like once every 6 hours or something like that. So
that was Watkins. That was insane.
Yeah, so it's not really the requirement to say tires, and they take forever to put on as well. Not as much as the Kia Optima, of course, but they still take a while. But here we go, Diego Francisco versus Machuzinski, all the way up towards Rivata, side by side up through here. Can be pretty sketchy, but Francisco's got it.
Yeah, he has, so he moves himself back to the race lead. It's worth noting that Machuzinski has actually got to make a second pit stop. He came in 11 laps ago, so he's right at the end of what you would classify a potential potential fuel run even, as he heads himself now down to that third chicane once again, lap number 21 of 27. We'll get you a full rundown of your standings in a moment as we go back through your field a little bit and have a look at Andrew Picorio versus Colin Van Ram. This is P number 12 on track here, Connery. And these two people have now completed both of their services for the day. They are also running in a duo, so there's no one really around them to interrupt this fight.
Yeah, exactly. They can just duel amongst themselves instead of having to worry about outside factors or outside drivers influencing this one either in front or behind. And it's all just against these two as they hit their way around the racing circuit. It's up and towards Variante Alta now. You can see some of these drivers taking a huge amount of curb on the inside there. And Van Ram had a bit of a moment off the corner as well. He might even just have a slowdown penalty here, it looks like. So Picario, he's able to steam his way by on driver's left-hand side as Van Ram tries to spread out the penalty as much as he can.
Yeah, there's an art to doing that at a number of tracks. Of course, we talk about it most at Daytona, people who cut over the bus stop chicane. But there is an art of doing this. We've got a couple of people on pit road. That is Gorg Matusinski in the number 811 car coming in to make his final service of the day. In fact, everyone now has made their second stop. So let's show you your top 8 then, as we come down in towards the last 5 laps of this motor race, as your race leader Diego Francisco leading by 3.3 seconds over Greg Seitz. So he's had a fantastic run on both at the end of his first stint and his second stint to really punch through the gears and get himself a bit of clean air. Brian Lockwood is in 3rd place with his teammate Kane Halliburton in P at number 4. Philippe Leber runs in P number 5 after overshooting his pit stall at the end of his first stint. Paul Malocas in the 6th position right now in the number 4 car. Simon Edwards in 7th, and Sasha Gall rounds out your top 8. Well, I mean, we could almost say the battle for the race lead might well be over, because Francisco, he's been fantastic here today, Randy. At the start of the run, just pulling out the lap time.
Yeah, he's been absolutely picture perfect, hasn't he? But I don't think he can really just sort of sleep just yet, especially if this sort of gaggle of cars behind him. If they work together a little bit and they just leapfrog back and forth, they shouldn't be fighting for position yet because of how stacked up they are. But if they leapfrog and potentially work together, I could see them getting to Diogo at around the final lap. But it's going to be very, very close if it's even worth it at all. So we'll see what those drivers end up deciding. I will say on that front, somebody who's I think actually rebounded from a mistake very, very well, Will, is actually Philippe Lebert, because he's not that far off the back of the 4th place of Brian Lockwood and Kane Halliburton. I'd say he'd probably still in draft range as that fight for second is going to pick up down in towards Tamburello.
Yeah, and Brian Lockwood up into 2nd place. That is close. That was close again as well. The TT Racing driver of Greg Seitz almost put there into a sandwich. Somehow, he just about managed to keep it all together. Connery, that was very close.
Oh, that was almost as close as you can be down into turn 1, but all 3 drivers managed to survive. But Greg Seitz gets filed back to the middle of this trio right now. Could become a quartet if Philippe Lebert locks onto the back of these guys up through Tosa now, and you can make a move on the brakes into here, although it is pretty tricky on the inside there. And then, you know, if you haven't got move done by the exit of the corner, then you're going to have a rough time coming up through Piratella. But this is the corner that we're coming up to now. Lockwood still ahead of this train. Very aggressive entry. Some drivers like that sort of style of just really just throwing it in on entry and just hoping the car grips up.
Yeah, so we've got that battle going on. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th place on track right now. Behind, we have got more battles going on. Sasha Gall is now battling out with Enzo Cantor as a consequence of his pit stop. And just thinking about it again, having a look through, he would have been in that battle, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, Randy. Now instead he's having to battle with Enzo Cantor in P number 8 and 9, and we know how aggressive Cantor can be. We also know how good Enzo Cantor is on playing attack when he needs to.
Yeah, so this is going to be an interesting fight because you have one driver who feels like they probably kind of robbed themselves of a top 5 finish, and another one who has sort of sat here in this top 10 pretty much all race long. And Enzo Cantor started 7th, currently sits 10th, and like you said, he can be very aggressive and is very good at being able to pick up some spots when he needs to. They're going to be coming towards lap number 24 of 27. How is Enzo going to play this? You know he's going to be aggressive. Is he going to start being aggressive now with it just being the 2 of them? Or is he going to save it to the last lap or so and try to make a last-minute pass likely down to turn 1?
Yeah, as we go back on board then with the driver of Enzo Cantor towards turn number 1. He comes down to the inside, and he will get that pass complete right now. So that was nice and easy for him, moving himself up into the 8th position on track as he just danced it through the Tamburello. He's off.
simply wasn't able to get the car slowed down, and the car actually also stepped out on him. I have to wonder if he actually hit the curb. No, that was well before hitting that curb. That was just on the entry to the corner, and guess what? It's the grass on the outside. 2 tires in there, car's not happy.
Yeah, he hit it once and he would have got away with that, but he was just pushing it far too much into the right-hand side of the track, and consequently, he is back down into 9th place and 1.5 seconds behind Sasha Gall. Let's go a little bit further back, a driver who we haven't seen much of in this series, Gorg Matushinsky in the number 811 Club DH car versus Martin Cruz in the 201 Hispano-America car. So international representation once again here, Randy, and well, still some good battles going on. In fact, Scott Velez is going to be the one putting pressure right now over that 811.
Yeah, we always love the international representation in so many series, don't we? I mean, we've seen it as well, even in the eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series. We're starting to see some people, likes of Jarl Tien and Tristan Challoner, people from across the pond, get involved in that series. As a 222, Scott Velez going to take a peek here at the top of the hill. Not quite going to be able to make that work, but will he be able to make it stick down at the bottom? As nope, it's going to be the 811 of Machinsky who has that preferred line, so he'll hold the position for now. But very good side-by-side dogfight here as we get towards the end of this thing.
Yeah, as that was still going on, Philippe Leber with Kane Halliburton. Leber realizes that he needs to start bringing the pressure now, and look at that, through the middle. He tries to go, and one lane just gets blocked off for him. Philippe Leber up into 4th place. Well, that's his teammate there who's fallen behind, but this one is far from over, Connery.
And Seitz is trying to hang around the outside of his teammate. Will he give him a couple of issues to deal with? No, he's just going to drop behind onto the back of this train. There was a little bit of contact, though, between Lebert and Lockwood that time. You can just see them push wide out of Villeneuve. They know it is go time. They know there's only 2.5 laps left of this event. Up through Tosa then, and up the hill towards Piratella, and it will stay line astern for now. But if that last time down into 1 is anything to go by, I think we'll see 3-1 again this time.
Yeah, so this battle, we're going to keep with it. One thing that is worth noting, Connery, consequently, if I can get my words out, battle for the race lead is all but over, because the gap now from P1 to P2 is up to 5.4 seconds. Lockwood in 3rd place, and then you've got Philippe Leber in 4th, Greg Seitz in 5th. They are battling now for the silver medal position.
Yeah, Francisco has just said goodbye to the entire field. It's just absolutely ridiculous. He's running faster lap times on his own than some people are in the rest of the field in the draft. That is incredible stuff from the driver of number 48, and looks to take a fairly comfortable race win as long as he gets it to the end.
Yeah. One thing I have learned, and there's more questions coming your way. How come analysts don't know how to eat pizza properly, Randy?
I have no idea why.
As Philippe Leber. In fact, let's go on board with Philippe Leber, because he's the guy who got the run, Randy. This will be the opportunity, but he's got two people from the same team ahead, as Leber's going to try around the outside here. He's got huge overspeed and towards 1.
Look at that, 3 wide, and oh my god, that's going to be Halliburton in the middle trying to defend. He might even lose 3 positions here, because Seitz is all over the back of him down into there, and Leber, he can gain 1 more position, and here comes Seitz now very quick through the Tamburello sweep at that time, but can he complete the move before the Villeneuve sweep arrives? That is the big question. He'll have to try around the outside for the first apex, instead decides to back out of it. Fantastic fighting.
Randy, this one's all going to come down, in my opinion, to who's going to get the better run out of a Vatsa in a lap and a bit's time.
I think you're right, and maybe even a little bit less than that, coming off of Ravazza, even starting that final lap. We've not seen a lot of people actually work that slipstream very well, Will, coming off of Tamburello and be able to pick the spot up at the line. And Philippe Bear is going to take a peek at the top of the hill, but he will get back into single file. So I think the positions, I think the way this is going to be decided is who gets the run off of Ravazza, and the dance floor has been turn 1 all day. It'll be who can do the Tamburello 2-step and who's got 2 left feet.
Yeah, I've got Murder on the Dance Floor in my head, but that might only be if we end up with a crash down at turn number 1. Back on board with Greg Seitz this time. you notice that people's getting more aggressive. Felipe Burr, not quite close enough to have a run into that third chicane, but I want to keep an eye out on him because it's all going to be, I think, setting up this time, Connery. You cannot have a bad run out of Ravazza. You've got to make sure you've got momentum. Realistically, you want to be second in line heading into Tamburello.
Yeah, realistically, even if you do have a bad run, you can recover somewhat with the double toe, with the triple toe in the case of Seats, but very close between Halliburton and Liebert coming through the final Ravazza, the final corner of the track here at Imola. White flag is going to be in the air this time. 1 lap to go, 1 lap to get these guys sorted, and it's Halliburton on the charge, inside line taken. We're going to see 3 wide again, Will.
Yeah, we are. So they head themselves towards turn number 1, Tamburello corner.
Oh, Francisco's missed turn 1. Oh.
He does just about stay out because that could have been all of a sudden. Oh, we've got trouble on track as well. That is Greg Seats and Brian Lockwood spinning down at Tamburello corner. So there is going to be a final act down at turn number 1. Here's a replay up in towards that first corner, and you just see the back end of it. Greg Seats just running and catching the rear there of Brian Lockwood. Lockwood will be livid. But let's also show you, this is what happened to Diego Francisco in towards turn number 1. He drifts it, he slides it, he goes over the gravel. Randy, that could have been catastrophic.
Yeah, that was playing with fire there for Diego Francisco. He likely would have had a black as well that he's likely going to have to serve on this lap. So I think he's somewhat fortunate that those drivers were as aggressive as they were coming up towards those second, third, fourth spots. But Felipe Bear and the 12 of Kane Halliburton, they're not done fighting for second just yet.
Yep, so this is going to be the battle we're going to keep our eye on for just 1 second. Here is Felipe Burr. We're back on board. Does he go now into the chicane? No, he's going to wait. And this is what I meant all along. It's going to be a case of who gets a better run out of the Ravazza. Felipe Burr all over the steering wheel as they exit that third and final chicane. There's now 2 more braking points left to go. As Burr's going to look to the outside as they come down towards Ravazza 1. Burr's got to think he can't be too aggressive. The championship is still going to be in hand as they exit the first Ravazza. He's on the outside line. He's going to come through the second Ravazza right now. Your race winner will be Diego Francisco. We'll go back to him in a moment, but we're going to have a photo finish for second place. Who's going to get it? Burr is going to be close. He's not going to get it. It's going to be, yeah, Burr at the line. So Burr gets second place, and it will be Simon Edwards? That's not right. Kane Halliburton. There we are. Kane Halliburton coming home with third. That was mighty, mighty close there. Here's a replay. Go on.
Just absolutely incredible. Liebert finding the up and under through the final corner. What a time and what a place to be able to do it as well. Halliburton wasn't helped by the fact that he slid through the middle of the final corner, shrugging off a bit of momentum he could have used to defend position coming through the drag race to the stripe, and Liebert will get it by what looks like, by my view, just half a car length.
Yeah, it is. It's 33 1,000ths of a second at the end, but Diego Francisco, we haven't shown him, but he is your race winner here today. He wins out for TT Racing. What a race we've had. And if this supposed game is anything to go by, Randy, I mean, this race was just astronomical. I mean, I'm hoping for more this evening.
Yeah, what a final lap we just had. I mean, we saw the race leader, who was clear of everyone, make a mistake down at turn 1, and we saw that fantastic 4-way scrap that turned into 2 ways after the pile up at turn 1 and that second gaggle, and then when it's all said and done, 0.03 of a second separate second and third place after a fantastic pass made by Felipe Barrett through those final 2 corners, making the outside of the Ravazza stick.
Let's have a look then at your final race results from this edition of the 2K World Cup. And it is Diego Francisco who wins by 5.5 seconds at the end over Felipe Burr. Kane Halliburton in third place. Look at that gap. It was less than 0.03 of a second between the two of them. Simon Edwards comes home in P number 4, Brian Lockwood in P number 5. Let's not forget Lockwood and Greg Zietz had themselves an issue. Tamburello corner, last lap of the Motor A. Zietz just turning around Brian Lockwood, but Lockwood still able to come home with a 5th place finish. Bob Lucas in 6th, Greg Zietz in 7th, Sasha Gall in 8th, 9th place Andrew Pecoro, and running out your top 10 is Colin Van Ram. As we go back to page 2, Andrea Amon in 11th, Bernd Oswald in 12th, Martin Cruz 13th, Enzo Cantor 14th, Tran runs out your top 15. Brahim Atinides, he had an off, he had a drive-through penalty, he comes home 16th. Georg Macicinski did actually lead a lap here today. He comes home in 17th place, running Griffin in 18th, Neil Kemp in 19th, and Edwin Valerino rounds out your top 20. Having a look at the DQ tracker, and I'm just going to tell you one thing now, Connery, we had none.
Ooh. Is that a first for this series? I don't broadcast this series, so I don't know.
We're impressed because, I mean, a lot of people thought there was going to be a number of drivers. Some people got close. Lockwood and Malocus got up to 18 incidents, so they were only 2 away. Chris Malcolm got 19 incidents, but he did come home all the way down in 28th place here today. But there's a remainder of the results, just for confirmation, up on your screen. We're going to take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen, here on Racesport TV and on the iRacing Esports Network. But interviews coming up after these messages. You're watching the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulation. We'll be back in just one moment's time. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to post-race coverage here from the 2K World Cup, presented by DES Simulation. And before we go any further, a reminder, if you need any more, that coming your way in just a few moments' time. Actually, that's not working at all. Let's try this one, shall we? Coming your way in just a couple of weeks' time is the first round of the eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series live from Daytona International Raceway, the high banks, the 31 degrees, and of course we've had ourselves the driver draft, the first ever draft in the eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series iRacing Series history. They enter its 10th season and it's looking to be the biggest and best to date. Check it all out on the iRacing Esports Network. We're back here, though, at Imola for the time being, as we have got a plethora of interviews to talk to very quickly. Starting off with second place driver Philippe Leber. Philippe, at the end, it was by hundreds, but let's talk first of all, if we may, about the pit stop.
The early pit stop?
The first one, yes.
Yeah, I just didn't want to get involved in that fight for the first place because Sasha was not really cooperating. So I think we were losing time. So I thought, let's get a pit stop done and try to get some clean air. And Diogo thought the same thing, so it worked well.
What about the slide?
Oh, I've had many.
No, the slide through the pit stop. I mean, how much do you think it cost you? Because we estimated about 1.5.
No, I don't think so, because I knew right away that I overshot it, so I put it in reverse even before I was standing still. So I think I lost less than a second, hopefully, but I don't know. I can't really tell.
You do end up, however, be able to claw yourself back. Francisco looked to be in a class of his own today. Was there any way that you think in an alternative scenario you could have beaten him?
No, Diogo was really quick here. I could have stayed with him when we exited the pits. We were together, but we had some misunderstanding with Rob Adams coming out of the pit lane. So then I made a mistake and lost 3 seconds, and yeah, it was over. Diogo was just too quick. I couldn't catch up, and then I made a few mistakes as well. So, but he really deserves this win. He was so fast.
You got second at the line over Kane Halliburton by hundreds of a second. That's going to be useful for you in terms of championship points, especially as you haven't really been able to get any lead lap bonuses today.
No, that's right. So I'm pretty happy with second because I have quite a lot of points from the first 3 races. So it's good to just bring home the points every race. That's important at this stage.
Okay, 2 questions. Sponsor shout-outs as normal. Patriots or Rams?
Yeah, first a shout out to Diogo for his first win, I think, in the 2K Cup, and thanks to our league sponsor, DES Simulation. And as for your question, I think the Patriots, but I hope not. Is that a good answer?
50-50 down the middle. Ladies and gentlemen, Philippe Leber, second place here today. Coming home in 4th, just out of the podium, is Simon Edwards, stood by with Randy Cheneth.
Simon, you come home in 4th place today. You come up from 8th on the grid. A lot of streaming here at Imola. How's those 27 trips through turn 1 for you?
26 of them were okay. I flew off trying to pass Sasha and went right through on the grass, so scared myself silly there. My main problem was the rift. I didn't even expect any issues with the race in the rift, but I was having terrible stutter right from the beginning. So I thought I was going to pull over actually in the first lap. But I continued on, and just like you say, I just tried to tag onto the draft until I got used to it. But I've never driven a race like that with that bad a frame rate in the Rift before. It's horrible in the Rift.
And now talking about this track, of course, it's got one of the longest runs into turn 1. We talked about that pretty much during the entire broadcast. How does that tie in with also having one of the longest races of the season being a double pit stop race? You know, how do you really kind of have to take those 2 things into account of how you control traffic and how you control your pit strategy?
Yeah, I wasn't, in terms of controlling traffic, I tended to be at the back of the group, so I wasn't having to do much management. In terms of the pit stops, that's the first time I think I've actually got a 2K race with the pit stops exactly as I wanted them both times. So I knew I was going to come in on lap 10, I knew I was going to come in on lap 20, and I just didn't vary that. And because I tend to be at the back of the group, it was easy to manage.
Well, Simon, thank you for joining us, and congratulations on moving your way through the grid up to 4th place. Of course, took some benefit off some drama from the drivers ahead of you, but everyone will take those free spots when they can get them. Before we let you go, who gets it done for that 52 car?
I've got no sponsors. I'm trying to get my my place of work.
Well, you need to throw race spot logos on there then. You'll start keeping up with Diogo with that extra couple horsepower.
Yeah, I could do that. I'm trying to get my company that I work for to sponsor me, but I'm not even going to mention their name, just so they don't even get a free one.
Okay, Pats or Rams?
I don't follow it, so
We'll put him under Saints.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, I love that.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Simon Edwards coming home 4th place here today. Brian Lockwood comes home in 5th place and stood by with Connery. And Connery, I have to say, that was an interesting last lap with Lockwood.
Yeah, very much was. And, well, we have him in the comment box to just talk over what exactly happened through the Tamburello sweeper that time on that last lap. You were leading across the line, you got swamped by the 2 cars going left and right, and then you finally get taken out by Greg seats behind by the end of that particular complex. What's the read of the situation from you?
Well, we, I knew I wasn't going to hold on to the lead of that little group going on. Kane was on my inside. We kept Philippe on my outside, but he still managed to get a full car length ahead. So I wasn't able to hold the 3 wide or anything like that. So we went into turn 1. Kane and Philippe were side by side. I was behind them. Greg was behind me. And of course, they weren't at full speed going through turn 1. So I was able to line up a really, really nice run on exit, possibly making it 3 wide. Would have been interesting to see how that played out. Would have been difficult to hold, but then next thing I knew, I was sideways in the gravel. So happy to end up 5th after all that happened this race.
Yeah, exactly. It's still a fantastic finish considering that you did start in P number 12, so still a good couple of positions gained in that one. But as Randy has already mentioned, this one, the longest or one of the longest races on the calendar with the 2 pit stops. Does that change how you approach the race at all, or is it just sort of the similar sorts of strategies you'll find in a normal 1 pit stop race?
Oh, it absolutely changes the race. And this race I had the pleasure of having Kane, our teammate, racing and working with me the entire race. And we also had shout out to Marco Normella, who's in the background behind the scenes talking us through what we needed to do. It was just a real pleasure to work with them. We were able to get our strategy right where we wanted it. What we weren't able to fight with Diogo, he was just too fast. But as for the rest of the field, played the race exactly how we wanted to.
And then looking into the later rounds of this season, of course, finishing P number 5, still a fantastic points haul for you. So where you were, in terms of the championship standings, where do you want to end up being coming into maybe the final couple of rounds and see what positions you can challenge for?
Well, of course I want to win. I'm going to have to miss a few races due to some real-life racing in my schedule. But I think I've been getting some nice points finishes, nothing too crazy, no big points hauls, which I'm gonna have to work on moving forward. But I have some nice consistent finishes to fall back on.
Consistency is definitely the name of the game across the entire season. And before we wrap up here on Racesport TV, do you want to thank anyone, Brian?
Yeah, thanks to everyone at Racecraft Engineering and the Racing Network. Working with them is just always a pleasure, and we got a pretty decent result. Not quite as strong as we wanted going into the last lap, but that's the name of the game. Yeah, thanks to all of them. Thanks to you guys for the awesome broadcasts, and see you next time.
Pats or Rams?
Oh, well, I'm going for the Rams, but I don't have my hopes up.
Well, thank you anyway. Thank you. Brian Lockwood coming home, P number 5. That is all we have got time for here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. But as ever, I want to say thank you to the people that get it done for us. First of all, DES Simulation. They are the providing sponsor of the 2K World Cup, as well, of course, as our friend Islam Balal, Track Cams, 22.com, Andreas Warner, and One Design, Simon Grossman, Apptioneering.com, Nick Thisson for Racesport TV, live timing and scoring. Thank you to Connery Maddock and Randy Cheneth, whatever you're doing this evening. We hope that you enjoy it. This has been the 2K World Cup live on the iRacing Esports Network. From all of us here, have a great weekend. Goodbye from Imola.